Buncombe County Board of Education special called meeting today, a work session. Mission of Buncombe County School Board is to foster a culture of excellence and continuous improvement where every student will thrive and learn from exceptional educators, and our vision is for every student to graduate on time, prepared to pursue their chosen path as critical thinkers and collaborative leaders in our diverse society. I greatly appreciate all of our board members and our staff's hard work in compiling the information for us today. We have a few board members in person present with us, and we have Mr. Cheatham online as well. Ms. Churchill will be here very shortly. Ms. Lewis will be absent from the meeting. First on our agenda is the approval of our agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda, please. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is approved. Opening comments? I really just want to express my appreciation again for all the hard work. Y'all are in the midst of a very challenging budgeting cycle. I understand that for sure, and our staff as well, with all your input and time working towards helping us as a board understand what our school system needs so that they can be successful. So just thank you for that in advance. And Dr. Jackson, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Just to echo your comments, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity. I'm very appreciative of the work of our finance staff, and that goes to our bookkeepers in our schools as well. All of the work that they do to make sure we continue to be excellent stewards of our taxpayers' money is very much appreciated, and we're very grateful for that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. All right, Tina, you have the floor. Thank you.
Our presentation topic today is going to be around our 25-26 outlook on the budget. This has been the most challenging budget process that I have been involved in since I transferred to Buncombe County Schools in 2018. There's so many unknowns, but I'm going to do my very best and required due diligence to present the factual financial data along with preparing and talking about all of the points and assumptions that we had to make in building our forecasted 25-26 budget. I'm also presenting today data that comes from certified data outside credible sources. I have on each slide indicated the citations of where that data was taken from. And I want to talk about the agenda today and what we will be covering. So with the agenda today, we're going to talk about what we do know, what the local financial outlook looks like, what we don't know, the revenue overview and a deep dive into those revenues, the budget assumptions that we had to make as a financial team, and the BCS Budget Office projections for the 25-26 school year based on the assumptions that we're making. So what are the things that we do know? We must present a budget to the county commissioners by May 15th of 25. We're working hard to do that. Several bills have been submitted to the state legislature, which could have an impact on our BCS budget and then also impact the local budget if voted into law. The state has filed 4 different bills right now. So there's House Bill 192 that shows a raise in teacher pay and dollar allotment study. It has an average of a 22% increase for teachers, certified staff. House Bill 420 is called the Sound Basic Education for Every Child. It has an increase average of 12% for teachers and 8% for principals. Senate Bill 659, Investing in North Carolina Act, ranges between 12 to 15% increases for teachers depending on how if that is approved or voted on. Next, there's Senate Bill 649, is to restore advance pay. A lot of people call that master's pay, but it also means doctorate or anything in advance pay for teachers and instructional support personnel. Those are the four major state players that we have heard about, and we've done a lot of investigating trying to figure out which way things may be going. And also the governor's budget is out, which has everything in it, way above all of this. So next, the federal allotments. President Trump signed an executive order to dismantle the Department of Education. We have asked our state representatives, our school business officer, what does that mean? She has repeatedly, and I'm talking about Jennifer Bennett, she stated that there's no legislation in place or build out any of the state allotments to be able to handle these federal allotments. So in other words, laws have to be changed, legislation has to be changed if it's passed through to a state and the state has to handle it. Another big component of that is we don't know who would be handling it. It could be timing. We may not get those December, January, or at the end of the school year, depending on how long it takes for legislation to be put in place to determine how the federal dollars would pass through to us. It's just so unknown. Another big piece of that is we have around 238 employees that are paid federally, and with that, the component, we don't know that because the allotments are not built to incorporate those employees, we don't know if local would have to pick that other piece of that up in order to make sure all employees are paid equitably and equivalently. So we just don't know around that. Next, there's the local bill that has been filed, and currently it has moved. It is still slated and written as of today, I checked just a few minutes ago, that it could be used for any purpose of the county's determination. It does not state for schools only. And it has moved from rules into the finance department.
Tina, can I ask a question, just to clarify real quick? So, just to clarify, because I think it's important for everyone to know, the bill that's been filed regarding Article 39, that it's not, it's the flexibility of the use of Article 39 by the county, not the county school system, but by Buncombe County government. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
It means supplanting.
Okay, thank you.
That they would supplant and use our regular Article 39 dollars, which are currently legislated to be used on facilities and facility maintenance only. It would be that the county could use it for any purpose they chose,
Okay.
operational, non-school related, municipalities, anything,
Okay.
and not be given to the schools at all. Or they can use it also to supplant the funding that they have taken away from us or the funding that we're requesting. In addition, if any of these state legislated bills go through, what it's going to cost to cover the salaries and benefits of those increases.
Thank you.
Okay. The next bullet point on that slide is talking about enterprise. The enterprise fund, I'll refresh your memory. We have two enterprises. They are the school nutrition program and our BCS learning labs. And I want to talk about the enterprise budget for a minute for the learning labs, because this is also unknown and it's impacted by an early childhood grant that we receive from the county. So we have projected a fiscal year 26 budget for our early child care education. And as you can see, if we were to receive the same ECE grant at the same rate, we would still have a shortfall this coming year of $43,000. In scenario 2, if the early child care education grant is discontinued, we would end up with a shortfall of $304,607, which is another county-funded grant that's impacting our education system and could impact local dollars as well. The third scenario of this situation for the learning labs is returning to a previous model prior to the grant. And that would still end up with a remaining shortfall of $146,360. So we have some scenarios and some breakdowns of what it would potentially take in order to be sustainable. And so with scenario one, a break even would be a tuition increase from $525, that's what we currently have tuition payments for the early child care learning, to $600 per month. A scenario two, without the early childhood education grant, we would need $1,075 a month for tuition to be at a break-even point. In scenario three, returning to the previous model prior to the grant, would be a break-even tuition of $800 per month. So these are just things we got to keep on our forefront to understand this. There may be an impact down this fund as well.
And Tina, that, just to clarify that one too, that is our preschools at the 4 high schools that we currently have.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Thorpe, if I could just pause for 1 second. Ms. Churchill, thank you. Sorry that we had to go ahead and start, but we haven't gotten far. We're on page 2. Actually now page 3, excuse me. Talking about the enterprise budget related to our learning labs. So thank you. Just wanted to
Thank you.
help get her caught up.
Okay, we're going to move to the next slide, and we're going to dig into a deeper dive into our local financial outlook. Please keep in mind that the information that I'm providing here, I have cited the locations of where the information was taken, but we're going to look at hurricane recovery, the permits, the property and sales tax collection, and the Florence comparison. So what you're seeing on this screen is the actual collections of property taxes from January of the 31st of 24 on the left at 95.82, $240 million collected, versus January 31st, 2025 of 96% collected at $256 million collected. At the exact same point in time, year over year. The next slide, and I've cited where that comes from, that was directly off of Buncombe County's tax collection page. The next slide is off of the Local Government Commission, the NC Treasurer, and particularly the AIFR report, and I've put a link on there. So what you can see here is from 2020 to 2024, and this is as of today, this is current collection rates. They have now collected 99.78% of all property taxes for the 2024. And they have continued to do a fine job at collecting property taxes from 2020 to the end of 2024. This chart is a wonderful chart to talk about the hurricane bounce back. What I did was I went to the Department of Revenue and pulled the statistical monthly sales and use tax. This is all posted every month on the Department of Revenue. What made this easier to do and analyze was Hurricane Florence hit the East Coast on 9/14/2018. Hurricane Helene hit us, Western North Carolina, on September the 27th. Very similar to the tourist, very similar demographics. We have a lot to compare with between New Hanover, Onslow, and Buncombe County government, Buncombe County itself. So what this represents is the month-over-month comparison, and the month 2 was July, previous to the storm. So you can see that moving through July, August, September, and the storm hit in September. Now, what's a little bit telling here, you can see that theirs hit in the middle of the month, ours hit at the end of the month. So we still had lag 1 more month a little bit following the storm based on when they collect data and the sales tax. So we are seeing the exact same trajectory of increase. And if you look at the gray line, we are above where we were prior to the storm on sales tax revenues. If you follow the gray line and look at zero, month September, compared to January's reported sales tax, we are above. We're slightly above where we were right before the storm. We are on a full road to recovery. The other thing that's built into this, of all the sales tax that has caused all these increases, even from the other hurricane, is North Carolina started requiring all repairs to be taxed. Almost every repair is taxed. So that's built in from our sales tax that's showing a turnaround. I'm anxious to see how February, I'm expecting February to continue to go exactly the way that Onslow and New Hanover did, and see another huge influx of sales revenue for the month of February. Because you can see around us, it's very busy, activity is everywhere, repairs are going on everywhere. Permits are through the roof. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So this data is percent change, month over month, or is that, or percent change from July, from the beginning, like if you, on the graph?
It's month over month. Percent change.
Okay.
Comparing to yourself.
Yeah.
So Tina, with this graph, it's kind of mind-boggling that when you compare us to a coastal city versus a mountain city, we dipped a little harder in our storm. And that could be rejected because most of our interstates were shut down. So no one can get in, nobody can get out. But when you look at the coastal cities, they went up, but then they came back down. And we are striving in our third month from December to the 4th, up, going up, going up, going up.
Mm-hmm.
So we pretty much are going to surpass what Florence and New Hanover went through.
I predict that. Mm-hmm. And I want to refresh everybody's memory on the local, let me go back just one, on the local financial outlook. Let me refresh everybody's memory. We rely heavily on Buncombe County to fund our school system. And this year we received around $95 million for that. After they took back the 4, we still had $95 million. There are some vital components to that local budget that cannot be forgotten. All BCS, Buncombe County School employees, receive a local supplement. And those percentages and rates were approved by the county commissioners. In addition, the classified salary study cannot be forgotten. It was approved by the county commissioners. That is a reoccurring expense that they have approved and had agreed to continue to pay. These two items are reoccurring that must be met. On top of the fact that all employees receive a local supplement, local funds were used to pay the total salary and benefits for 661 employees this school year. Now, don't forget, that number had dropped down to 636 or 7 during ESSER. We had moved and used our ESSER dollars. Please don't forget this. We had used our ESSER dollars to build back our fund balance that was in the negative. We were in a terrible financial situation prior to the ESSER dollars. We used those to build our fund balance back. We didn't use local dollars to build that back. We used ESSER. That's a key component. In February, the county cut our budget by 4% mid-year due to this fallout from Helene. And the dismal financial projection for the remainder of the fiscal year 24-25 mainly was driven by a projected decrease in sales tax revenues that I have shown are back on the rebound, and it was driven by a projected decrease in collected property taxes. And I have shown through the data, not me personally, the data's there that shows that they have collected it. In March, you heard from a panel of economic experts that did not share the county's pessimistic sentiment regarding the economic outlook for Buncombe County. They had a much more positive outlook on Buncombe County's economic and the recovery following Hurricane Helene. The Buncombe County Schools finance team agrees with the economic experts, and we've pulled some data to present that to you today that shows a more positive economic picture and a turnaround of where we're headed in Buncombe County from the recovery of Hurricane Helene. So we're going to talk about what we don't know. We don't know when the state will pass a budget. We're in the long session. And what does the long session usually mean? A late season for when they actually pass the budget. It has been November before. If it takes that long to pass a state budget, what will the federal, if it's passed to the state, how long will it take for that to get turned around? We have no idea. How many students will we have next year in each school? We don't know. This year, we were hit with 2 virtual charter schools that we had no idea. We could not figure it out. There's no way we could plan for this. They were down near Raleigh, and we have students attending them. That's about 12% of our local dollars that goes straight to the charter schools. Regardless of where those charter schools are located, we're footing the bill from our local dollars. When the state budget passes, how many unfunded mandates will be included? We have no idea. Legislated changes are not always accompanied by the funds needed to implement. There's lots of things that are very unknown that I'm going to talk about in a minute that could be in that legislation that could impact us. The ongoing impact of Hurricane Helene, our ADM fluctuations, changes to our student demographics. We just don't know what the makeup of our student demographics are going to be. Our demographics per pupil makes a huge difference in the expense, the dollar amounts it takes in order to meet their needs. Ongoing damage assessments, we are working diligently. We have been working endlessly in the finance department through our insurance, all of our insurance packages, and our FEMA. We are making great progress, but it takes time. It takes time to get all of those repairs done and all of the information collected and submitted. So we're working through those. We don't know the timing on when we will receive those funds back, which has impacted our fund balance. Economic conditions, tariffs on building materials. We have a lot of capital projects that are in works. We don't know the outcome on what kind of increase we're going to see on those building materials. We're trying to do an estimate, trying to figure out what's going to change, but we don't know. Timing of the local economic recovery and our FEMA reimbursements are just not known at this time. But I'm going to dive into the revenue overview. I want to refresh everybody's memory that here are the 4 main categories of revenue. State fund, 1. This is the legislator is looking now at a weighted funding model and an exceptional children weighted funding model. They are really pushing strong for a weighted funding model. However, I just don't know how that's going to look, how many more dollars. There needs to be a higher increase to the base dollar amount that's given to education, but I don't know how much that's going to impact Buncombe County Schools and how much will impact local dollars. Still a lot of things unknown at this time for state funding. Local Fund 2, that mid-year reduction in the county appropriation of over $3.9 million, we're just unsure how this will affect next year's appropriation. I have asked repeatedly, I have sent emails to the budget team trying to get answers. All that I can get is that we are still showing an unrestricted growth rate of negative 3.49%. I said, what does that mean? We don't know, we're unsure. That's in emails, that we don't know how to even budget because we cannot be provided any information on how to move forward. Fund 3, we're uncertain about the dismantle of the Department of Education and what that will mean and how much that will impact us as well and increase local dollars. Next big one is our Capital Fund 4. The concern is tremendous over supplanting of our Article 39 and the impact it would have on funding the essential capital projects that are so needed to keep our roofing and our projects going, our HVACs, to meet the needs of our students, to make sure our buildings are meeting the needs for our students that are in there. School nutrition, Fund 5. This is a huge topic in my mind. The federal funds from the U.S. Department of Agriculture are the main source of our funding for school nutrition program. Uncertainty over our future funding. How is that money going to get to us? Who's going to be administering the funds for school nutrition? And with so many changes happening, what does our community eligibility plan, our CEP plan, mean? What does that mean to us? Is it going to continue? Is that going to stop? Do we return to free and reduced? We don't know. And the other piece of that is, how would we get the funding? That's another thing, maybe delayed, that we would need fund balance in order to maintain while we move forward through this transition period. Child care, Fund 7, the enterprise. I mentioned it earlier. We're uncertain if we will have the same level of county funding for child care. The state stabilization grants associated with the recovery from the pandemic have come and gone. They have been ended. And Buncombe County is not accepting applications currently for the Early Childhood Education Grant until funds are identified to support these programs as part of the county's budget line item in June. So we don't know if those are going to be funded either. Other specific revenues. Now, how does Fund 8 tie to Fund 5? Let me just explain. And how does Fund 8 tie to Fund 3, our federal funds? Fund 8 is our revenues that includes grants from multiple entities. However, the largest source of revenue other than grants in Fund 8 is our indirect cost. Our indirect cost has been we're one of the few school districts that still can charge the full indirect cost to the school nutrition program to support our unfunded items such as electricity, overhead. That's how we pay our overhead, our upkeep, is Fund 8 through our indirect cost. Those may be gone if we cannot charge. There's a legislation you have to have 2 full months of operating budget in the school nutrition fund in order to charge the indirect cost of 8%. We may not be able to do that. We may not be able to continue paying our utility bills and our overhead for our electricity, our water, our propane through this, which then hits local. So there's so many key points of this that are so unknown. I have never seen a year like this ever with trying to figure out what is our budget going to be like in 25, 26. In 1 year, there's no way we can forecast 5 years or 10 years out when they can't provide us 1 year of data to know what to do. Because we cannot generate revenues or go in debt ourselves. I'm going to do a little deeper dive in revenue. I spoke earlier about State Fund 1 and some of the things that are impacting us, we think will be impacting us. The Exceptional Children Weighted Funding Model, this may be the first stage of the rollout of the full weighted student funding model that they're wanting to go to. The funding is to be more aligned with student needs rather than a simple head count of EC students with a cap of 13%. Expected to necessitate additional investment of funds by the state, which may not be popular with legislators. However, for this to work, there has to be additional funds added to the allotment for exceptional children. The next thing is we moved to funding in arrears last year. The minimal change expected in state funding due to similar ADM reported for best one of two. We were at 22,066 in 23-24, and then last year, right before the hurricane, we were at 22,052. As a result of the Hurricane Helene, ADM has declined, and we currently have approximately 350 fewer students than September of 24. However, we are 215 less students at the same time as last year because of early graduation. We must assume that our students will not return, and that for us, in finance, to be able to do projections, we have to assume that our students will not return, and that we have a reduction in state allotments in the 26-27 year, since we're doing funding in arrears. Realignment of staffing needs should be considered immediately, as we will only have this 1 year before the state funding reductions occur. As you can see the graph, of the state funds, 95% covers personnel, salaries, and benefits, and there's only 5% for non-personnel. A deeper dive in our local fund too.
Tina, can I ask a question before we go? So going back to the ADM that's declined, we had approximately 350 fewer students, and then it says we are 215 less students than the same time last year. Does that mean that we're really down 565?
No.
Okay, so 215.
215 is from this month
Okay.
of February, or March of this year.
So some of those kids have come back, apparently,
Yeah.
and then we had the mid-year
With
graduation.
the mid-year graduations,
Okay. Okay,
with
thank
the
you.
mid-year graduations, what's different in that?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so our local, Buncombe County has historically used what they call the unrestricted growth rate as an indicator of how much potential funds they were going to be able to add to the base amount of what we had gotten the previous year. As I spoke earlier, they are reporting a negative 3.49% as an unrestricted growth rate. Not sure, but the addition to the county's 4% mid-year reduction, which was 3.9 million, and this negative 3.49%, I don't know what that means. I don't know how to budget for that. So the dismal financial outlook was not shared by the data presented by the North Carolina Department of Commerce in the Board of Education's Economic Outlook presentation, and we are unsure of what decisions the county commissioners will make for us for the 25-26 county appropriations. And I have got a breakdown right in the middle that shows transfer to charter schools has to be right around 12% based on the dollar allotment. Supplies and materials are about 5%. Purchase services, contracted services are 12%, and personnel, salary and benefits of that local is 71%. So, potential impacts of reductions or freezing of appropriations. State legislated increases would need to be matched for locally funded personnel. Salary increases for both state and locally funded personnel cause an increase in local supplement, which is paid from our local funds. In the absence of additional funds, increased personnel cost could necessitate staffing reductions and potential impact services for our students. Decreased ADM can result in a shift of funds towards charter schools depending on our ADM split between us and Nashville City Schools.
Tina,
Yes.
could you help, can you define the revenues that are included in the calculation for unrestricted growth?
No, I have asked the county to provide a detail of how they got that calculation and what is included. I have no idea.
But we've been using that term unrestricted growth has been used for a number of years, and so it's not made up of like 4 buckets of the same revenue every year, or?
I don't know.
Or it's just not just sales tax, or it's not just property tax? It's,
The county commissioners and the budget team would have to answer that. I don't know, I've asked. How did that calculation, how does it occur? How has it happened? I don't know.
okay.
Sorry. Can you give me an example of purchased services, just an example of what would fall in that?
Psychologist, we're having to contract psychologists, we can't hire them.
Okay,
We're having to contract several positions. HVAC is another one. We're having to contract purchase services because we cannot get those positions hired, and we have breakage or we have a need that has to meet the IEPs for the psychs. So we have a lot of contracted services.
thank you.
I've provided a graph that shows the federal Fund 3. It represents how much is state, how much is local, how much is federal above for the 21, 22, 22, 23, and 23, 24 year. So multiple changes have been made by the new federal administration, and it's created great concern as to the future of both the U.S. Department of Education, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and how those funds will be administered. We already saw a $1.2 million for Title I and a $1.5 million total cut this year, 24-25, from our Title I and all of our other titles this year. And so I have great concern over this funding and knowing what it supports. So as you can see, out of Title I, we pay 37 teachers, 23 coaches, 65 assistants, and so on. Out of IDA, we pay 105 EC assistants, which are required based on their IEPs. Other dollars for the $4 million, we support 47 more staff in there out of federal dollars. So that's, we've got the number, it's close to 238 employees that are supported by federal funds. So we don't know if
And we lost money this year for Title I, is that right?
yes.
So I was at Emma today, I was the principal there for the day. What I found out was that they had 2 part-time Title I assistants, 1 full-time, and then the reading specialist. And now they're down to 1 reading specialist and 1 teacher, or Title I assistant. Okay, well, let me just say, they need more than that, because I witnessed it all day today.
We're
how
not in
important- And I
disagreement.
said it last Thursday, those jobs are so important to us. So we've already lost funding, we're at risk of losing more funding,
Correct.
bottom line.
Yes. What it boils down to in every financial decision I make, every decision, is what is in the best interest of our students? How can we meet their needs? And it takes away from meeting the needs of students is what it boils down
Yes,
to.
it does.
So we don't know if Title I or IDA or other programs will be ended or curtailed. What funding sources will replace these revenues are unknown. Or will the expenditures have to be reduced? If funds are redirected to the states, how will this work? And what is the timeline for receiving those funds? Because federal funding is just unrelated to the state legislation right now of how it's built, we just don't know how it would roll out. So I'm going to be very clear and transparent on how we built our budget and our assumptions. Please keep in mind, as large as we are, 1 small percentage change in our assumptions means millions of dollars either way. Okay. The table on the right shows year over year what teachers have experienced as an increase or did not receive one. You can see the years during our recession of 09 through 12. Anyways, you can see the actual percentages that teachers have received from the state legislation. So what we're doing is we build our budget based on a 3% increase for the certified salary And with that step built in, the way they build it, 0 to 25, it equates to 4.13% that we have to build into the budget. The non-certified or classified salary, we built in 2%, including the step, which equates to a 3% average that we had to build into the budget. Our FICA remains the same at 7.65, that we match. The employee pays a portion and we pay the exact portion as employer. The retirement went down this year in 24-25, and that has never happened in the history of a retirement rate. And so we went back up to what it was in 23-24 to project a 25.02%. Now, if that one's off, it's millions. That's a huge percentage that swings. All of these, if they're off any little bit, it swings the whole budget projection. But these are the best numbers we have at this time, and this is what we used. Health insurance rate, we went back up to a 3% increase, which is $8,340 that the employer pays for every single person who has health insurance.
The health insurance is most likely to have an increase of 3%, and that basically is what a teacher would possibly get as an increase.
So the salary increase,
Yeah.
I'm doing certified at 3%.
3%, right.
Sometimes the health insurance follows that, sometimes it doesn't. So we assumed, this was
Yeah,
our
that's what I
assumption,
thought.
it's gonna go in line and be close to 3%. We did some historical analysis, we looked at data, that's where we came up with this.
Thank you.
One more assumption that we build in, and this is unknown for sure, but we did our charter school look back. This is directly from Prismatic's consolidation study. We provided them these numbers, and then they used it in the study. But this is our actual historical data for the number of students at each of these charter schools. And so we're assuming a 0.5% increase for the 25-26 year. I'm hoping that we're pretty close with that. Continued budget assumptions that will impact our local budget. State legislated salary increases directly impact that local and federal funding sources used to pay all of our employees. We have currently 661 FTE built into the projected budget. Salary increases for both state and locally funded personnel cause an increase in local supplement, which is paid from our local dollars. Federal funds are used to pay currently, and in our projected budget, we're using the same number, 238 FTEs, full-time equivalents. Because this funding is unrelated to state legislation, we don't know the impact and how long it's going to take, and if it will actually increase our local budget to be paying these employees. Here's the breakdown of our 661 employees and what categories they fall in for this current year and for our upcoming year. All right, we're going to dive into our projections. After all of those assumptions that we just have gone through, the projected increase to local expenses, local salary and benefit expenses will be approximately 3.6 million hit. The federally funded salary expenses will increase approximately 660,000. This equates to potentially a 4.2 million increase on personnel costs to be covered by local funds. The BCS Budget Office projects that there will be a substantial shortfall in the 25-26. As I've stated, this is dependent on many, many factors. Where will the state budget come in? If it's different from my previous projections or assumptions, the 2 and the 3, if the health insurance is different, if the retirement is different, These numbers will be different. What will the county commissioner's decision be for our county appropriation? What are the changes to federal programs? Using these budget assumptions to maintain our current services for students, the BCS finance team estimates a shortfall of approximately $9.4 million for the 25-26 school year. Here's the projected revenues. I'm holding it flat as to what we actually received this year after they took away the $3.9 million. We know with what assumptions we've made that the expenses to local will be $105 million. We're short $9.371,626. So there are options here. Number one, how can we increase revenues? We need to increase revenues. We don't have the ability to do it ourselves. We need the funds given back from the county. We could cut expenses. We're cutting student needs out if we do that. If we use what's remaining of the fund balance, it puts us at a high risk of the needed cash flow for federal payrolls, for other payrolls, for our expenditures that we're still working on through insurance and FEMA that we have paid up front. We have used our fund balance to cover all of these issues that hit this year. It has been enormous. We have not gotten all of that back, nowhere near gotten that back from insurance or FEMA yet. We're waiting, but we're working on that piece for the Hurricane Helene items. We have not gotten the $3.9 million back from the county. And it becomes a cash flow issue. It took till December to get our federal funds this year. We met the payrolls for all the 238, mostly till December. And then we had our $1.5 million cut out of Title I that local dollars had to pick up. So, proactive responses. I want to thank you all for your advocacy, for promoting going to state legislators and going to our county commissioners. Do we have any other questions?
Any questions from the board? Mr. Cheatham, if you can hear us, if you have any questions, just let us know. I have a couple, but I'll defer to the board first if they.
And make sure I understood it right. Your shortfall that we're projecting, that's including the 3.9 million?
Yes.
Okay. So if that were to be returned, it would be less than the 9.3?
Yes, I assumed that they did not give it back when I built the budget.
Okay.
For the benefit of the public, could you explain what happens if we run out of fund balance?
I'll be calling the county commissioners, and we'll be on the news, saying that we have no way to make payroll. And I'll call state legislators saying, can you upfront any money ahead of time, because we have no way to pay payroll.
Thank you. So just to be sure, those numbers on your projected revenues, that's just our local supplement, correct? Or our count, that's our fund.
That's our county appropriations assumption, the $95 million.
That's Fund 2 is what I'm fumbling with.
Fund 2.
Fund 2.
Local county appropriations, Fund 2.
And I think where my head's going with it is, you've got your kind of pie chart somewhere,
The
or
which
maybe it was
chart?
the previous one, around where our funding comes from. And you're referring to federal and state funding as revenue as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just not, that would be in addition to what's presented on slide 27.
Yes.
Yeah. But we're expecting, well, they're giant question marks is the best way to put it, right?
We assumed, because we're funding in arrears, we assumed, because we didn't have our planning allotments at the time, we assumed that our state would be very similar as last year, and we assumed that our federal would be, after the 1.5 million cut, we were assuming that those dollars would remain similar, is how we built the budget. That's a good question.
Okay. So really I get it now. And your projected expenses include all of the assumptions that you show on, I guess, slide 26 with the first $4.2 million increase personnel cost. No, excuse me,
Yes.
all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So even if we were to get the 3.9 back from county, we still are at a shortfall of over 5 million
Mm-hmm.
going into this next year.
Correct.
5,400,000. Okay.
Part of that I want to speak to is we also saw increases of the, I call them immutable cost. Electricity, all of the utilities went up. The insurance went drastically up, and I'm working through right now, which I'm really worried about. I'm working through a new bid package for our insurance. We have to do it every year. We roll it out, and they put it out for bid to all the different insurance companies. And what I'm hearing and seeing is that our deductible, which has been, it was $25,000 for every piece of property, not one piece, is going to $100,000 per building. That's where I'm working through all the details. I don't know that yet, but I have to work around a budget, figuring out how to put back some of that for fund balance, because if we have something hit, each building is a $100,000 deductible that would come from local, which would come from fund balance. So I have to have fund balance for many things to keep operations going.
Tina, thank you so much for all this information. It is extremely helpful. I'm curious I have a question about your property tax collection data. Slide 9. We attended a joint session with Buncombe County Commissioners and Nashville City School System in January. At that point in time, there was a forecast presented of collection rate that was presented as a fairly dramatic shortfall, as I recall. I don't remember the number that was presented.
So, their presentation was stating that he gave the 95.82% as the amount verbally, Mr. Hudson did, that he had collected. He said that in the presentation. The data is clearly shown here that represents the facts that from their sheets that they have to report to the local government commission, what they've actually collected. This was the presentation at January 31st. They had collected 96.10%, but he stated 95.82 at that time. And then this is the local government commission showing what they've actually collected to date.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was trying to reconcile in my head was between slide 8 and slide 9. Slide 8 is
It was timing
year over
between,
year, Jan 1, 2024 through versus Jan 1 of 2025.
the exact same snapshot
In time.
in time.
Yeah, and then
This is to date
this is,
over the last 5 years. and this is all property taxes. So one item that was presented, if you'll recall, were the permits. They only showed single resident permits being down 1.8%. But if you go look at all permits, the duplexes, the townhomes, the multifamily residence, one of them is up over 229%. The value year-to-date between 23 and 24 is over $15 million increase in value that they've collected over all properties.
One other question that I think you can clarify for something I've heard discussed in the public around Article 39, capital fund, operating funds, all of that, is that there was I believe the number was $60 or $70 million state relief fund that was made available at some point over the winter. And the question that came at me was, well, perhaps you can just access those funds from that $60 or $70 million state relief fund to basically say, you got Article 39, you're gonna use that for operations, use this state fund over here to backfill your capital needs. I just wanted, if you could
Let
help
me
explain what
explain
that
that.
fund was and how it works.
It was $50 million for capital. The other pieces of that were for school nutrition, PRC 230, and for some other items very specific that they funded it through DPI that came to us. We have used those to keep school nutrition for all the loss. They lost over $600,000 and some in food. So those funds above the $50 million were for specific items. Technology was one of them, and we turned in all of the items that was destroyed, washed away or destroyed. We've received that to replace those. We have a very detailed list of everything on those. And the $50 million for the capital, it clearly states in legislation that you cannot apply for this unless you have fully identified what insurance is not going to cover and what FEMA is not going to cover. It's and. So we're working through that, but it's going to take more than a year to finish up with all of our insurance claims, all of the FEMA after. You have to do insurance first, and then what insurance don't pay, FEMA will, what qualifies. We're working through that. You cannot just go get that when we're in the middle of all this capital that we already have identified and been working through for years, and we've been doing phased approaches. And we know our roofing, we've got so much roofing that has to be done, we've got so much buildings that need to be repaired, and we've been doing a phased approach so that we could stretch those dollars farther than we have, and they've been using the debt, the bonds, to help manage their cash flow. So this is the issue, is where we cannot supplant those Article 39 dollars. We cannot. And we can't go after the $50 million right now because we're not to that point.
But to be specific too, to clarify, that $50 million was specific to, right, if I'm correct, buildings that were damaged by Hurricane Helene. Like, we had all different levels of building damage across our 45
You are
schools.
correct. It specifically says,
So you can't use that $50 million to supplant the Article 39 dollars that we would have otherwise.
correct.
Yeah, that's
No,
my point.
yes, that is stated specifically. The $50 million is to be used for the damages strictly related and identified that happened from Hurricane Helene.
Okay. Any other questions from the board, Ms. Franklin?
Oh, I would like to, I'm looking at this sales tax. And the comparison that they're giving us with Florence and New Hanover. Because I'm trying to, I'm getting an understanding of how we are really going to bounce back. Because I really want our community and I really want our schools to come to a clear understanding that Asheville is not going to be in danger as what we expected. So I do think we put the cart before the horse. As I said, property taxes, majority of them are paid by the banks. So, and I think that's why when you look at the property taxes, everything is being consistent. So this lets me know probably only 10% of the homes in Buncombe County are paid for and homeowners are paying it themselves, but most of it's been paid by the bank except to be consistent through each storm. So I'm gonna ask somebody a question about that on that side, why we thought we wasn't gonna get it. But when I look at Florence and Hanover, when we look at sales tax, I know a lot of people talking about we lost a lot of sales tax doing Helene, but on North Carolina's web page, when they talk about sales taxes and use tax and gross collection and taxable sales by counties, so they track all of us to see exactly where we are at when it comes down. In October 2023, after Helene hit us, Buncombe County alone received $31 million in sales tax. So that lets me know that a lot of repairs were going on of materials that we purchased, food that we purchased, that we had to pay taxes on. But in October 2024, after Helene hit us, we dropped to $26 million in sales tax. So it's only between that year, we lost $5 million. That's it. But look at this. October 2024, we received a $26 million. New Hanover beat us by $2 million. Onslaught is nowhere near us at all receiving taxes. In November 2024, we received $24 million in sales taxes. New Hanover beat us by $3 million, according to North Carolina's webpage. In December 2024, we collected approximately, said, $31 million. We beat New Hanover by $3 million. We actually surpassed them this time. Now, in January 2025, Buncombe County has collected $35 million. New Hanover is at 32. We are now projecting ourselves where we are outpacing them because of the recovery that is going on in our sales tax.
And we've outpaced ourselves prior to the Hurricane Helene hitting.
So according to these calculations on North Carolina's webpage, in the next 2 months, we're gonna explode because Helene hit us in the most crucial months of our lives. Between October and December is that's the holiday season for Biltmore. Is bringing a lot of people into Western North Carolina. Now she's gone, and now we're going back into summer. Now we're going to increase that because now we're going to set ourselves up for the best thing. So I don't think some of the places that are destroyed are actually going to stop us from being successful, according to these numbers. So I believe in the next 2 months, we're going to reach $40 million in sales taxes. And you have to say, where's it coming from? Is it tourists or is it us? What is going on in Buncombe County to drive these sales? Because we know we just had the basketball game here. And a lot of things are going on downtown Asheville. I don't see the numbers. I don't see I don't think the schools need to leave any money.
Well, I will continue tracking and I'll bring it back.
Yeah, I think the
that's something
Department
we need to look at every day.
Yeah, and I think the Department of Commerce, their presentation was, they focused on that concept of the Asheville-Buncombe metro area was growing, had a strong growth signal for the prior few years. Yes, Hurricane Helene impacted it, but we got right back on that growth trajectory rather quickly, quicker than most people would have thought after the largest natural disaster in the state. But yes, I think that just the rate of growth is pretty strong for the area. Any other questions for Tina? Well, Tina, thank you so much, and your team, thank you. Amazing presentation.
Thank you.
Always looks really great and clear and super informative as usual.
I have to brag on my team for that too.
Yeah, the entire team, and in the midst of being audited, right?
We are in the middle of the audit and
Yep.
we're in the middle of FEMA and insurance.
Okay,
We're plugging right along.
yeah, we need to get you like a cape with a superwoman like for your whole team. But yeah, I think what's important for all of us is to keep advocating everywhere we can for fully supporting public education across the board, whether it be locally with our county commissioners or whether it be at the state level, to not throw unfunded mandates our way. The uncertainty coming from the federal government as well is very troublesome and hard for us to handle. The main thing when I speak to people is to remind them that communities with vibrant schools that have well-maintained schools that are well-built, that the HVAC systems work and the roofs don't leak, fantastic teachers, which we saw in the consolidation report that 80% of all the respondents in our county basically said, we believe our schools are great and they have fantastic teachers that care about kids. So we already have high marks, that we as a school system are a really critical part of the vibrancy of this county and the community as a whole in general. And we attract folks to live here. Our school system does because our schools are so good. I'll have a lot of friends who are realtors, and that's, if not the first question families ask, it's the second one, which is, how are the schools?
So,
And I know a lot of them whose kids are in our schools, and they have the same type of, high marks for the caring nature of our teachers and our buildings and everything else. And so my main advocacy is for folks in the community to not forget that public education matters for so many reasons. Yes, we're educating the future generation here, but also it's just a very key element of having a growing community that's vibrant and healthy, and that every chance people get to please speak up for us.
it drives a successful economy,
Yes.
is what the public education does.
Second largest employer in the county, correct?
We are the second largest employer.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you very much. I'll be in Raleigh tomorrow for the next 2 days with the Regional Chambers of Commerce, advocating myself for all of this, so, and supporting their initiatives to help grow our community too. So I very much appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, staff, for all your hard work. And with that, any other last questions? If not, I will, Superintendent, do you have any closing comments? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be extremely brief. I just want to point out, our Chief Finance Officer showed a shortfall of approximately $9.3 million. If we restore the $3.9 million approximate dollars that were taken by the county, that leaves a shortfall of about $5.4 million. $4.2 million of that is based on our assumption of what the state personnel cost will go up. And so what we're brought down to is about $1.2 million, which reflects the immutable cost, the utility increase, insurance increase. And so the point that I'm trying to make is just that we worked really hard the last several years to right-size our system. Outside of what's been caused by the hurricane in terms of what we lost from the county, outside of state salary increases, and we're so thankful for those for our folks, we would be within our means this year. And that's a point of pride for me. Now, we are where we are. We're looking at a $9 million shortfall depending on what happens. But that said, I do want to recognize the work of this board and of our team in previous years. We've gotten through the cut that was made this year because we were such careful stewards of the resources entrusted to us, because our board was so fiscally conservative in making sure that we could live within our means. And so I do want to highlight the work, past work of our system and our Board of Education in putting us in a place where we have great challenges, but we're in better shape than we could have been had we not made some tough decisions in the past. And so, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity just to make that comment.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent Jackson, and thank you for your leadership, as always. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. One last announcement. The Board of Education will have a special call budget work session on April 25th, 2025 at 1 p.m. in the Minitorium here at Buncombe.